sheet ramming.
And Swamiji's.
For class, right? He's saying, why are you putting it back there if we're going to use it?
See, ramming food, right?
Why are you shooting?
Because I don't think.
Oh, but you didn't think of that?
No, I did.
You didn't think of it, man?
No, I usually do.
Yes, it is. Second verse, first chapter.
You usually do, but you didn't this time.
Yeah.
What didn't you do?
Something like that.
Where's the other Madanga? Are they covering that? Is that it? He's gone upstairs.
Guru Krishna said where he's going for 6 days somewhere. And so
New York, Rathia.
Yeah, New York, Rathia. So he said, I'm taking my Mridanga for 6 days. And so I thought you donated it. They said my Mridanga. Because then we can't use it for the party period.
But this one's doing a little better. It's a little warmer, tighter. No?
That's really
Not so much. It's ripped.
I thought he had one in like an orange and blue one.
He has 6 Mridangas.
Wow.
All right, let's move along, boys.
Weird.
You got a mic somewhere? Oops. I'm not used to it. My pillow. Cushion. That.
Who could understand? So we got 2 mics now, and one can't understand it.
Okay, turn it way down, way down. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hari Jaya Radha. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hari. Gopi Janavallabha Girivardhari. Jaya Gopi Janavallabha Girivardhari. Yashodanandana Bhajana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Bhajana Ranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hari. James Bad Paramahansa Padurikacharya Ashtotar the Sri Srimad Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Padurikacharya Ashtotar the Sri Srimad His Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnavinda ki jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur ki jai. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Samaveta Bhaktivinoda ki jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Guru and Gauranga. Narayanam Namaskritya Narang Chaiva Narottamam Deving Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jai Mudirayet. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is our very means of conquest, we should offer our respectful obeisances unto Lord Narayan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, unto Narayan Rishi, the supremest human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author, and unto Srila Prabhupada, the translator, commentator, and our spiritual master. Nashta Praresha Badreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavatyuttama Shloke Bhakti Bhavati Naishtaki. By regular attendance in classes on Srimad Bhagavatam and by rendering devotional service to the pure devotee, all that is inauspicious within the heart is destroyed almost to nil, and loving devotion to the Supreme Lord, who is glorified in transcendental songs, is established as an irrevocable fact. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. On the 6th day of Wednesday, 2018, in June, been a while. On the 6th day of June, 2018, in SanDiego, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. And we have just begun Canto 4, Chapter 1, and we're on Text 2. Jamal Prabhu, please. Okay, Text 2. Akuting rucheye pradad. Akuting rucheye pradad. Ape bratramatim nirpaha. Putrika dharmam ashritya. Shatadupan hamoditaha. Akuting rucheye pradad. Ape bratramatim nirpaha. Putrika dharmam ashritya. Shatadupan hamoditaha. Akutim rucheye pradad. Api bratramatim nirpaha. Putrika dharmam ashritya. Shatadupan hamoditaha. Akutim rucheye pradad. Api bratramatim nirpaha. Putrika dharmam ashritya. Shatarupan umoditaha. Akutim rucheye pradad. Api bratramatim nirpaha. Putrika dharmam ashritya. Shatarupan umoditaha. Akutim rucheye pradad. Api bratramatim nirpaha. Putrika dharmam ashritya. Shatarupan umoditaha. Prabhu? No? Go ahead. Akutim rucheye pradad. Api bratramatim nirpaha. Putrika dharmam ashritya. Shatarupa namoditaha. Akutim uchehe pradhan. Api bhratrimatim nipaha. Putrika dharmam ashritya. Shatarupa namoditaha. Akutim. Akuti. Ruchaye. Unto the great sage Ruchi. Pradat. Handed over. Api. Although. Bhratrimatim. Daughter having a brother. Nripaha. The king. Putrika. Get the resultant son. Dharmam. Religious rites. Ashritya. Taking shelter. Shatarupa. By the wife of Swayambhuva Manu. Anumoditaha. Being sanctioned. Translation. Akuti. Now Akuti was one of the three daughters of Swayambhuva Manu. So we've heard about Devahuti extensively in the third canto now. Akuti. Akuti had two brothers, but in spite of her brothers, King Swayambhuva Manu handed her over to Prajapati Ruchi on the condition that the son born of her be returned to Manu as his son. This he did in consultation with his wife, Shatarupa. Purport. Sometimes a sonless person offers his daughter to a husband on the condition that his grandson be returned to him to be adopted as his son and inherit his property. This is called Putrika Dharma, which means that by execution of religious rituals one gets a son, although one is sonless by one's own wife. But here we see extraordinary behavior in Manu, for in spite of his having two sons, he handed over his first daughter to Prajapati Ruchi on the condition that the son born of his daughter be returned to him as his son. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur comments in this connection that King Manu knew that the Supreme Personality of Godhead would take birth from the womb of Akuti. Therefore, in spite of having two sons, he wanted the particular son born of Akuti because he was ambitious to have the Supreme Personality of Godhead appear as his son and grandson. Manu is the lawgiver of mankind, and since he personally executed the Putrika Dharma, we may accept that such a system may be adopted by mankind also. Thus, even though one has a son, if one wants to have a particular son from one's daughter, one may give one's daughter in charity on that condition. That is the opinion of Srila Jiva Goswami. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Vidatam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkness of ignorance, but my spiritual master Srila Prabhupada opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisances unto him and all members of Sri Parampara. So one of the characteristics of a Purana is that it gives a history. In fact, Purana generally often means ancient history. And so in every Purana you'll find some account of the creation and some account of what we're hearing here, which is the descendants as they come down, who's the great leaders such as the Manus or Brahma, and some of the highlights of their pastimes. So here we're continuing with the life of Swayambhuva Manu in one sense. We heard how he came and last canto, how he offered his daughter to Karma Muni, who he understood wanted to get married even though he was deep in meditation and a yogi, and that whole experience with Kapila Deva appearing as the son of Devahuti. So this Swayambhuva Manu is so exalted, and his daughters are so exalted that again the Lord is appearing as the son of one of his daughters, Akuti. But this time Swayambhuva Manu himself wants to have him as a son. So this was the arrangement. Apparently he needed the permission of Shatarupa, and she gave it. And of course he needed the permission of Akuti and Ruchi, who he gave it to. So everything was all set. And just a little account, because I looked in the 8th canto, you'll find more details about the different Manus. There's several chapters on all these Manus coming down. And it describes Swayambhuva Manu and Yagya. And apparently this Yagya is the same as Yagyapati. Now, what it describes there is that Swayambhuva Manu, after he retired, much later, the Yajna is all grown up and he's an expansion of the Lord. So he went into the forest, as they traditionally do, the great kings and leaders, for renunciation. And he began chanting his mantra, and it's very close to the Ishopanishad. In fact, there's one or two verses that are practically identical. So he's chanting these Upanishads. But there's all kinds of rakshasas and evil beings in that forest, and they start to threaten him and attack him. And Yagyapati comes and protects him and kills all the rakshasas. And then it's described how this Yajna then became Indra. He took the post of Indra. And Prabhu describes there in that purport how the name Indra and Brahma and these names, they're just kind of like president, prime minister. Then you have to know, well, who is it? And so all of them have their own names also. So this is part of what we'll read in this Srimad Bhagavatam. Now, why is it important? Well, Prabhupada gave a summary at the beginning of this chapter in the last purport. A summary of the canto, and he describes some of the highlights that are coming. And of course, we're going to hear about Dhruva Maharaj. We're going to hear first about Daksha, I believe, Daksha Yajna, and how he became proud because he's very expert, especially at having progeny. That's why he's Daksha. He's one of the progenitors. At the beginning here, you'll find an emphasis on the progenitors, what are called Prajapatis. Practically, you can see the relation to the name of the words, because this is Brahma's chief. How can you say headache or headache? That how to populate the universe. And you can see if you read the second canto, the beginning of the universe, it doesn't go very smoothly at the beginning. He gave birth to some rakshasas and things, and the 4 Kumaras didn't want to do it, and so it's not easy, because you're dealing with the material energy here. But Swayambhuva Manu, he's one of them. He's also a progenitor, and we'll find that the descendants here, and the daughters of Daksha, how that all took place with the Haryasvas, and it's all very important instruction. And the song of Shiva, this comes up in the next with the Prachetas, and that's very illuminating, especially for those who are into worshiping Lord Shiva for material benefit. We see, well, what does Shiva want to do? How does he worship? He worships the Lord. He worships Krishna. And in fact, he's much more pleased with someone who worships Krishna than he is pleased with someone who worships himself for material desires. So this is a very important instruction coming here. But we're just at the outset of this canto, so we're learning of the descendants. And we can see what a contrast it is here. This is how, this is already the second time God is appearing as a son of after all, a human being, even though they must be very exalted. So we can see that this is Krishna's a pleasure, that he comes in order to perform that function of annihilating the miscreants, reestablishing Dharma, right, and protecting the devotees. So in every case, you'll see when he comes here, Yajna has protected his devotees, Swayambhuva Manu. Kapila Dev reestablishes Dharma by speaking to his mother. Very important. We have these instructions which are so conclusive. And this is what the Bhagavatam is all about, is that it gives us insight into the most important events that have taken place in the universe. History is of course a major subject. We've all studied in school, but history has to be selective, obviously. Every day there's millions of things going on that but you can't know about them because there's too many. So you always the historians pick out what they consider to be most important. I remember when I was in school and reading history, it always just seemed to be a succession of wars, isn't it? That seems to be the most important things, right? There's a civil war, then later on we have World War I, World War II, of course in American history. But you realize, if you study a little bit today, that it's completely distorted. Is that it's often said, those who win the war, they write the history. And that becomes the mythology upon which the nation grows up. So like, for instance, for American history, you know, I mean, we all remember the Pilgrims, you know, I don't know if they do it now anymore in grade school, you know, where you dress up and there's Thanksgiving, you know, all of this stuff. But, you know, you never really understood that, like, there's a huge genocide going on. I mean, did you ever read how, you know, they wiped out the Indians? Sometimes they were given smallpox because they didn't have any immunity. And, you know, Andrew Jackson was on the $20 bill, right? I think he's on the $20 bill, one of the bills. The guy was a mass murderer. You know, he had this whole idea of, you know, let's just get them all together, all these forts, Fort Myer down in Florida. There were forts where they would just gather the Indians and slaughter them. That doesn't make for a very good history. That doesn't, like, add to your, you know, pride of the country. So Bhagavatam is also a history, but it's a history of the pastimes of the Lord and his devotees. That was the whole point of Vyasadeva speaking to, Narada speaking to Vyasadeva to inspire him to write the Bhagavatam, is that this is what people need, because people read histories and they learn, and this creates their consciousness. If you read about American history as written by, you know, then you become okay. You know, America is the greatest country in the world, you know, and go and fight for it. And it's all ignorance. It's it's illusion. You know. So reading about the history of Akuti and reading Swayambhuva Manu and Yajna, what to speak of Krishna and Balaram and Vyasadeva and Narada Muni, this exalts the consciousness. And we have great exemplars which we can model our lives after. So this is the great value of reading Bhagavatam. That's why it said it has to be read daily, and it really should be the essence of your intelligence should be wrapped up with the Bhagavatam's instructions. Dharma projita kaita votra. Here you're going to learn what real Dharma is about. I mean, we always have to remember the urgency of, you know, our life as human beings. The first thing you learn is that human life is a very rare achievement. We don't die, and we're not born, right? We just take on different apartments. We just get different bodies. That's what life is in this material world. Nobody dies, so everyone thinks they do. So, what's the meaning of the whole thing? You know, does it have any meaning? Even though they might not teach it like that, the basic instruction that you get living in this modern world is that there's no ultimate meaning. Is that the only thing you should do is, yes, follow your senses. And you see, we have this nice thing to buy that will please your senses. Now, let us take your money. You don't even have to come. Just press the button on the key, and this number goes to our account, and you'll be happy. It's a crazy world. And how does that, you know, idea come about? Is because there's nothing else. There's no other instruction that the pleasure of the senses is a great trap. It's a trap which leads you into a life of suffering. And so that knowledge Srila Prabhupada came to give as a representative of Swayambhuva Manu and Lord Brahma coming all the way down, you know, Lord Chaitanya. And the only hope is a different orientation, is the knowledge that can give you an understanding of what's really worth striving for. Prabhupada loved those verses of Narada Muni to Vyasadeva. You know, I mean, you listen to his lectures and you'll see he quoted these verses all the time. Tasyaiva heto prayateta kovido nalabhyateya brahmatama apayada. That one line, if you actually understand it, can change your whole life. He's saying that one should strive. It's the Sastra Tasyaiva heto. It begins with the previous verse, which is that your happiness and your material happiness and misery is already programmed in. In other words, you're going to get a certain amount of that in this lifetime because of what you've done in your last lifetime. And that's going to come unsought. You'll get a certain amount of happiness, a certain amount of distress. So there's no point in making your entire focus trying to maximize the material happiness and minimize the distress. It's a complete mistake. And in so doing it, especially in this culture where there's no higher instruction, you're bound to commit all kinds of horrible sinful activities and pave your way to hell. That's really the situation. So all the acharyas, they come and say, wake up, uttishta jagrata prapavarana bodhita, which means wake up, get up, and recognize the great treasure you have, varana bodhita, the human form of life. And strive for self-realization, God-realization, Krishna consciousness, going back to guidance. Yes, it's like a razor's edge, but that's what it takes, because we're so conditioned, we can easily fall off, cut ourselves, and become completely bewildered. So the guides that we have for our intelligence, everything begins with the intelligence. The intelligence guides the mind guides the senses. What are you going to do in life? And what you do then affects your intelligence. It's a feedback loop. It's like the modes of nature. You know, if you allow yourself to be affected by the mode of passion, for instance, then you listen to music, eat certain food, hang out with certain people, and do all these things that is in that mode, and that increases you to stay in that mode and do things that then lock you in there. This is how it works. And then, you know, somehow maybe you'll get influenced by someone in the mode of goodness, and it's an effort, you know, to change your life, and let me get myself together. This is all in the material sphere. So in the spiritual sphere, when someone comes into your life, however it may be in the form of meeting someone on the street with a book, of seeing a Ratha Yatra go by, of getting online and by mistake keying in Hare Krishna, whatever. Somehow or other you get the influences there. And because we're human beings, we get curious, and you get more association. But as devotees, consciously understanding what's all about, we have to directly discipline the mind and senses to always go toward the side of spiritual life. What to read now, what to do now, how much to eat, who to hang out with. All of those things are part of the sadhana bhakti. And most important is to accept Prabhupada's regulation for reading his books and understanding his books, thinking about them, and talking about them, writing about them, and living them. That's what it means to be a devotee. So that's what we're doing. We're launching into this fourth canto. Each canto has its own character. I remember when I first started proofreading, I was coming in at the end of the third canto. And actually it was at the end, about the middle of the where Hiranyaksha and Varaha are having their battle, and that was like a whole revelation. And really, as an editor, I started to realize, well, these translations are a little different. There's some far out stuff in here, a little bit different than what I've read already in the second canto. And it turns out that Prabhupada, for some of those chapters, including that Varaha chapter, this an amphibious beast, you remember that? Where Hiranyaksha is trying to insult Varaha. And he said, an amphibious beast. Prabhupada never used that word before or after, amphibious. And which is indicative of what he was doing there to speed things up. He was taking the translations from the Gita Press edition and plugging them in. And then they were a little bit changed. He did that for a couple of chapters. Anyway, this is just my experience with the third canto, and then the Kapila Dev, it's like the sun coming up, the instructions, right where you live, and the beautiful descriptions of the Lord in the heart, Sanchintayed Bhagavatas Charanara. I still remember those verses, memorized, starting with the lotus feet and the toenails with the effulgence emanating and destroying the mountain-like sin in the heart of the devotee just by that meditation, all the way up to the smile and the laughter. This isn't ordinary, Paramatma meditation. This is bhakti. It's all culminating in bhakti. And then the fourth canto. And I remember reading this, the Song of Shiva. We're going to come upon that in a few weeks with the Prachetas, and how this is such an important mantra. He taught them this mantra, and anyone who chants this mantra gets all these benefits. I got to start memorizing this mantra. I've got a few verses memorized. But the point is, it's actually a great adventure reading this Bhagavatam. If you take it that way, if you really study it and share it and meditate on it and see what's going on, I mean, this, we take it for granted here, but this is like amazing. God is appearing now as the Son. Now you can see the difference in the culture. I mean, can you imagine someone suggesting this today? The grandfather, or the father, has a daughter, and he gives her. First of all, just giving a daughter away is like unheard of today in the modern Western world. But that's civilization. But I want to have the son comes and let me have who's going to agree to that today? I'll take the son. But it even has a name, Putrika Dharma. It's right in the verse, right? Isn't that part of the verse today? Putrika Dharma. That a certain practice of the grandfather getting the grandson as a son. So that went on, and this yajna, you don't hear too much about what he does, except that, wonderful protecting of his father, or grandfather, and then taking on the role of Indra. So, where do you find, now one of the things that's going on here is that the Lord is taking direct interest and activity within this material world. Right, Kapila Dev, we just heard him. He was there sitting on the ocean shore, instructing his mother. And now this yajna, he's taking a role. This is Krishna. He doesn't have to do it, but he does it. He protects the great soul Swayambhuva Manu, and then he takes on the role of Indra, which is a headache. All dealing with all of these things and heaven and the weather and things like that. But for the good of the world, he does that. And this is another aspect of Krishna conscious philosophy that is so fascinating, is that God cares. He cares what happens here. And he's directly taking a role and intervening in order to protect us and guide the world and reinstitute Dharma and give some souls a chance to come back to Godhead. And that's what this movement is all about. How does Krishna intervene in our lives? Well, he sends his great devotees. We're not going to see Krishna walking in here. If you go to the forest, you won't see him there with the gopis. But he's directly here, both in the form of his pure representatives, such as Srila Prabhupada, and in the form of the holy name, the form of the Srimadbhagavatam. Now, how can we know? How can we experience his presence in those things? By exposing ourselves to them, by taking them, as we say, in the way that's prescribed by the great devotees. I've been rereading the Srila Prabhupada Lilamrita, and it's just Prabhupada in 1967 in Haight-Ashbury. 2 centers in the whole movement, the New York Center and the San Francisco Center. And Prabhupada is just, how the first deities came about. Some of you may not know that story. Malati, Malati there was a big barrel full of little Jagannath and Subhadras and Balarams that they imported from India. And this is the hippie days, maybe it'll sell in San Francisco, it'll be far out, So she stole Jagannath. It's not in the Lilamrita, but I know she did. This is other I've heard. She just shoplifted a little Jagannath like this. She didn't know what it was, but she knew it was from India. She said, well, what is this? Let me show Swamiji. She showed Swamiji. Prabhupada gets down and bows down to this little statue. She says, well, what's going on here? And he explains, this is Jagannath from Puri. Are there others? She says, yes, there's some more. So she goes, I don't know if she paid for the other 2 or what. So that's the model. So that's, can you carve these? Shama Sundar, there's like 10 devotees in the movement. One of them is an expert woodworker. Prabhupada's walking down Houston Street and he needs to, there's Hayagriva, the English professor. Come on, Krishna is obviously sending him the people he needs. So Shama Sundar, he's smoking a cigarette and carving Jagannath. Anyway, this is ISKCON. But Prabhupada, he gave himself, so abundantly. And that was the sustenance of the movement, and that was what's so attractive. But you read, you got this whole temple full of hippies, either mostly in the evening. In the morning, Jayananda was sitting there with a few, early risers. But in the evening, everyone comes in, and they're in different states of intoxication. Some of them, they says, "I am God." They'll yell out, and all this stuff. You can just go nuts. And Prabhupada's tolerating it all, But Krishna sent him in order to plant the seeds. And meanwhile, back in New York, they're saying, "When are you coming back?" He was gone for 2 months, and so he finally went back. Then he had his stroke. It was a whole thing. But it's so important. These kinds of pastimes that Prabhupada undertook, showing his incredible tolerance and bravery and the tapasya that he undertook to preach this movement. He did it all for us. He did it all out of love, out of compassion, because he could see, although, anyone can see, but he really understood the depths of it, of the suffering that was going on, and that this is the only hope, is that Krishna consciousness centered on the chanting of the holy name. And so that's our legacy. That's just like the Christians have their, Jesus Christ and the crucifixion, what he did and the sacrifice, which moves him to this day. So the same thing is there with Prabhupada. It'll always be there, and for those who are part of this branch of Gaudiya Vaishnavism. So when you read Prabhupada's books and you realize, what it took him. Anyone who tries to produce a book, I've been going through a whole week of not being around, because from day to night, just working on this, trying to get this 220-page book together that we do every year. What it takes to write this, and of course I'm not even writing it. It was written by all these devotees, and I put it together. But Prabhupada is writing everything and dictating all of this, and that's completely out of love for his spiritual master and Lord Chaitanya and for us, and he's putting his life and soul. He called them these emotional ecstasies, these purports that he has. So when you accept that gift like that, just like if someone gives you some Mahaprasadam, there's a certain way you have to honor it. Right? You can't just ignore it. Right? You have to honor it, take a little bit of it, whatever. Read in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. So the same thing is true here with the Bhagavatam. This is Prabhupada's great gift. He really put so much emphasis on it, and getting up in the middle of the night. So he's giving us his association, and he's giving us his instruction for our benefit, eternal benefit. And we should take it like that and revere these books, read them, share them with each other. One of the offerings, Keshava Bharati Maharaj, who is great exalted soul, and for the last few years he's been stressing the importance of reading out loud. He's gonna actually record the whole Bhagavatam. He's beginning to do that with the purports. But that's one of the best ways to associate with devotees. You just get together with the nectar devotion between you, a CC, Krishna book, whatever, and you read together, and you maybe discuss a little bit, 2 of you or 3 of you or 4 of you. And that's a great way to learn the books, to get enlivened. It's totally bona fide. It's described in the Bhagavatam. Parasparano katanam pavanam bhagavadyasha mitorati mitastushti nivita mitaravana. This is in the 11th canto, describing what devotees do. They get to parasparano katanam. This is in the Bhagavad Gita, this word. Paraspara means together, mutually. Anukatanam means to speak Krishna Katha. Pavanam Bhagavadyasha, the purifying glories of the Lord. And what's the result? Mito ratir, you develop affection between you. Mitas tushtir, mutual satisfaction. And you nourish each other's detachment from Maya. That's another thing. And then it says, smarantik smarayanchascha. Who can guess what that means? Remembering and reminding. So by this activity, you're remembering Krishna, and you're also reminding each other of Krishna. This is the great value of association. The essence of this activity is Sankirtan. What do you think? Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. I'm chanting, you're hearing, you're chanting, I'm hearing. You're remembering Krishna and reminding each other of Krishna. And the result of this, he says, who are you remembering? Smaran is a mito gauga haram haram. Again, you mutually, a gauga haram. Aga Oga Harim. You're reminding yourself of Hari, who is Aga Oga. Ramapati, you know what this means. Aga means, and Oga, flood in the heart. So we all have this big mountain of sin. But it's Aga Oga Harim. So it's Aga Oga Haram Harim. It's Hari who takes away even mountains of sin and suffering. Aga also means suffering. Because, in Sanskrit, oftentimes what the cause and the effect have the same word. So the effect of sin is suffering. So suffering also Aga can also designate suffering. So Aga Haram Harim. Then the next line is very famous. Bhaktya Bhaktataya. How's it go? Bhaktya. I forget the exact, but it means by this bhakti you get bhakti. By this kind of sadhana bhakti, this is sadhana bhakti of practicing, you get bhava bhakti. Bhaktya sanjataya bhaktya, that's it. And I always forget the last line. And in this way your hairs stand on it. Then your hairs, you start to get ecstasy. So those two verses, I mean, that's like what's the association all about. That's why we have an international society for Krishna consciousness. So that we can get together and we have to remind each other of Krishna, and in this way remember Krishna. And preaching is the same way. If you go outside, by preaching you're also reminding yourself of Krishna, reminding others of Krishna. And just that is the most pleasing thing to Krishna. That is the most pleasing. Preaching outside and preaching inside. Don't forget there's so much inside preaching we should do also. So this is the subject of this Bhagavatam and the other books that Srila Prabhupada gave us. Are the subjects we should share with each other. Find things that especially move us, share them with others, and in this way form our consciousness centered on Krishna and go back to Godhead. Okay, I'm going to read this translation again. Akuti had 2 brothers. But in spite of her brothers, King Swayambhuva Manu handed her over to Prajapati Ruchi on the condition that the son born of her be returned to Manu as his son. This he did in consultation with his wife Shatarupa. Any questions or comments? Okay. So, yes, Prabhu. Yeah.
And there's so much good advice all the time, every day,
all the time.
But then sometimes devotees have an experience that, despite all their good advice, when time comes, like, okay, drop the time. All this good advice, how to chant, you drop all this stuff. Yeah. And then
difficulty actually putting the advice to actualizing. Yeah. Yeah, yeah. Well, we talk about consciousness, and of course, the mind, and they go together. And these are, really very deep and complicated things. I mean, we come to Krishna consciousness, we've already cultivated our mind, we've been trained, there's this conditioning so much with our consciousness. And a lot of those tendencies and the different aspects of conditioning, some of them are deep-rooted, some of them are not so deep-rooted. And the process of Krishna consciousness, especially the chanting of the holy name, especially congregationally, is an extremely powerful deconditioner, reconditioner, let's put it that way. If you actually just take part in that, and Prabhupada knew this, This is. He had great faith in this chanting, and you can see even in the early days, he's chanting in the Bowery, the people with the bongo drum, somehow or other, get the chanting going. And one thing I notice, which is something we can really think about, whenever it describes a kirtan, yes, and after an hour they stop. When's the last time we had an hour kirtan? An hour, how are you? Yeah. Prabhu would go on for an hour. And in Thompson Square Park, hours. And then after the long time, hour, and he stopped and he spoke under the tree. Remember, and the point is that it takes exposure to the holy name to make the heart available, or make the heart able to receive the message, really. And so it's just a question of, in many cases, just showing up, being there, doing it, even though the mind is going here or there, and then trying to refine it. Just like I always say, I've just said this 100 times in these classes. I've been here for so long. Okay, you come to Mangalarti. We did that. That in itself is, you're fighting the mind, right? You get up, take the shower, do the thing. All right, we're doing that. Got to do it, otherwise can't stay. Okay, I'm doing it. All right, now I do it. I'm used to doing it. But where's your mind when you're chanting Samsara Davananalita Loka? First of all, you need to take the trouble. I took the trouble to put all those synonyms in the songbook. Vaisheshika Prabhu at first complained. Said, "Oh, we had these nice small songbooks, and now you got this big songbook." Said, "Yes, Prabhu, because every single mantra in there and every song has its synonyms so that you can learn it." And then later on he thanked me. "Oh, thank you." He understood really why. Because without those word for words, I don't know about you, but you can see so many wonderful translations. And believe me, that's the first thing to go. You'll see it translate. I mean, I got all kinds of books on my shelf, amazing library. And read half of them. But it's very rare. Prabhupada, took the trouble because he knew that, just go straight by you, this language. But he wanted us to learn the mantras and learn what they mean so that, you can actually start to meditate while you're doing it. So you're standing there in Samsara Davanali Loka. It's an effort. It's an effort, even if you know the meaning, to keep the mind, because it's not your native language. Even it's not your native language. Sanskrit, Bengali is not the same language. But the point is that that Sanskrit has a certain power to it. There's no question. So if you take the trouble, and it is trouble, to learn, slowly, one by one, what these words mean, then when you sing, and the music is there and the beat, which enhances it, and the devotees and the deities, then it'll have that much more impact on you. And it's always a question of the intelligence. There's this verse in the sixth chapter, Bhagavad Gita, where Krishna is describing the samadhi state. And I always remember this phrase, buddhi grayam atindriyam. He's describing this bliss, this happiness that is beyond anything that you can experience, the highest happiness. I forget all the Sanskrit. But that phrase, buddhi grayam atindriyam, means that you experience through transcendental senses, and it's grasped by the intelligence. In other words, haven't you had this experience? It's a question of absorption. If you're really there, it's not in a kirtan. First of all, kirtan's going on. It's competent kirtan, nicely done. There's a lot of people and so forth. But if you're really absorbed in hearing each sound, and you're there, in other words, be here now. You're there in the kirtan. It's a different experience. You can be in a kirtan and you're upset, you're this or that, you didn't get up right, you offended somebody, that's the big thing. And your mind is up, you're pushing it away. And Krishna is not letting you. See? So the quality of our bhakti, which is after all what we're trying to do, is improve it. We have to apply our intelligence to the sounds. The meanings and the sounds. And then, this is why avoiding offenses is so important, because Krishna's there in the heart. If you're offending devotees, then he won't let you relish the Krishna consciousness. And if you really offend, he won't even let you stay. So that's what's going on, is that we're not carefully applying our intelligence to every aspect of our devotion. How we can improve it. You know, how can I refine this? The japa is perhaps the most essential root of everything. But you know, I was just thinking of this yesterday, because you know, I've been over there for a week or so, and suddenly it came to me how, because I chanted, you know, this. I'm chanting all kinds of shlokas, so I'm chanting, I just was reviewing the Sadhu Sangashtaka, which is 3:25:20 to 27. It's the first instruction of Kapila Dev to his mother. And, okay, prasangam madadam pasham atmana kavayo vaduse sadhashikato mokshadvaram apavatam. But if you go over that, you know, Rita Prabhupada is one of the chantings, prasangam ajadam pasham. Each word has so much meaning to it. Prasangam, not just sangam, but prasangam, which means extreme attachment. Ajadam pasham, materially. Ajadam pasham means the ropes of extreme attachment to this material world. We're all attached. That's why we're conditioned souls. So that has to be transferred to the sadhus. In other words, it's not just superficial acquaintance. It's learning how to relate to devotees in such a way that there's an emotional bond, and the knowledge can actually flow, you know, in open, like flood-like. That's what I'm reading in these Lilamrita chapters. The only thing that was holding them together was Prabhupada himself, and devotees became emotionally attached to Prabhupada because of what he was giving them and who he was, and purification. A unique situation. The seeds were being planted. And because of their attachment to Prabhupada, they were ready to hear what he didn't hear, what he said, and do what he said to do. Not all at once, not everyone is in equal manner. But the point is that attachment was being transferred, and in the process of doing it, they were getting purified. You know, so all of that is just in that one verse. But you could just chant it without even knowing what it means, or superficially, or you can get into the meaning of it, of each word. Just like, you know, words are so. If I say, you know, 9/11. Now, before 2001, September 11th, that meant an emergency number, right? 911, right? But 9/11, suddenly it's a date. That's why it's 9/11. You know, it's September 11th. You don't even. It has so many associations. Where I was, how I experienced. If you were in New York, it's a whole different thing. You know, it's like cause your blood pressure to go up, and maybe, you know what I mean. All these memories, just that one word. Now, for the pure devotees, you know, the word Krishna, you know, it can bring tears to their eyes. They could choke up. Just that one word, Krishna, because of so many associations, the experience, isn't it? But so the point is, that's the way we want to be. We want to be where these words mean so much to us, and where you know, walking into a temple, appreciating. You know, the other day I took a walk. I've been walking around, and I walked down. I haven't done this in years. Walked down toward the bay, and you know, you realize, okay. This is like the geographic, you know, north of Grand and south of Grand. South of Grand is, you know, the rents are probably double. I mean, the houses down there, they're worth millions of dollars. You know, so I'm walking around, you know, like that, and I realize, wow, just having, you know, my little apartment over here and being able to come, you know, with 3-minute walk to the temple. That's what's so valuable, you know, about it, you know. Even with it so close to Garnet, it's so noisy, you know, and everything like that. But everything has, you know, is so meaningful. You know, everything has a meaning. You know, the words have a meaning. Why? The colors, the shapes, everything. And learning how to see the you know, the Krishna in all of the things that we've been given, and to cut away the dross and all of the stuff that is keeping us. This is what sadhana is all about. But you're right, it's a struggle. And sometimes people fall away from that struggle because it's too hard. So we have a great opportunity, being in the temple, regulation, we should take advantage of that. And everything we do also affects everyone else in this little, environment we have. We should remember that. All right, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Damodar, I need to talk to you.
Vandeham Sri Guru Sri Juta Padakamalam Sri Gurun Vaishnavangshan Sri Rupam Sakrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tvam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padam Sagana Lalita Sri Vishakhanitanscha Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Sivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Sivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Sivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare.